To today's tea and chat, and this is the Mindful Menopause Week. And today we have Dr Vicky Lord. As you can tell by the name, she is my sister. She's coming on to talk to us about how a GP can help you with your menopause symptoms. So Vicky's had 20 years of general practice and she has a special interest in women's health. So good afternoon, Vicky. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there. Hi.
So to start us off, is it possible you could talk through with us, what is menopause? What is it? What are the symptoms?
So basically, the definition of being postmenopausal is when a woman has not had a period for a year. The average age is 51, but the menopause, I suppose, is usually from the age of about 45 to 55. Which is when you might start getting symptoms of the menopause.
So how long does the menopause last then generally for most women?
I think that's quite a difficult question to answer because there isn't a set time that someone might experience symptoms for. So some women have no symptoms at all, and then I've come across patients in their 80s who are still having hot flushes and other menopausal symptoms. So you can't say, oh, don't worry, it'll be over in a year or it'll be over in 6 months. That's just not the case, unfortunately.
So when women go and see their doctor, there is a test out there, isn't there, where you can find out the levels of your hormones, is that right?
So the blood test is called FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. But it doesn't actually become abnormal until someone's been period free for a year, probably. The normal range is quite wide. So for most women in the perimenopause whose periods haven't stopped, their FSH will probably be normal and therefore not a useful test.
Okay.
The only time that it is useful is if you've got a woman with a Mirena coil who's not having periods and who therefore doesn't know whether she's gone through the menopause or not. And that's really the only time that the FSH is useful. In the perimenopause, after the age of sort of 45, blood tests can be helpful to rule out other causes for symptoms. So if people are feeling very fatigued, anxious, things like thyroid function, vitamin B12, iron level, they are useful blood tests to do, but the female hormone levels themselves actually aren't all that helpful. So that's why we don't routinely offer them to patients. I make my diagnosis based on symptoms, really, more, rather than you treat the patient rather than the blood tests.
Yeah, so can you actually be perimenopause? Say a woman's gone to the doctor and their hormone levels are normal. Can you actually be perimenopausal with a normal test result?
Yes, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Okay. So when a woman goes to see her GP, what kind of things should a woman expect? Because I've heard from a lot of women that are really nervous about going to see their GP for a number of reasons. So just to put people at ease, when they go to see a doctor, is it a particular kind of doctor they should be looking for?
I think in my practice, the female doctors are more clued up on managing the symptoms of the menopause, but I can't say that's the same for every practice. That's mine in particular. I wouldn't be worried about going to see a GP about it. I mean, on an average day, I'll probably speak to 2 or 3 patients about their menopause. We're expecting people to come to us with symptoms, and we've sort of heard it all. So, don't worry about, letting us know how you feel, really.
Is there something a woman can take with them to the GP to sort of help things along, sort of like maybe a diary of symptoms? Or
sometimes as a GP you find a list daunting. I'm happy. I mean, personally, I think it's better just to come and I think you're probably more likely to remember the important things if you just come as you are, rather than if you bring a huge list, not that may not always be relevant. I think, yeah, just come as you are, and just express how you're feeling. I think perhaps without the list, maybe.
Yeah, so it's more of a realistic sort of discovery then. Do you have any, or in your time as a GP, have you seen any reoccurring themes, any common problems with the women that you see?
In terms of symptoms?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, brain fog, tiredness, anxiety, insomnia, muscle aches and pains, joint aches and pains, low libido, vaginal dryness. They're probably the commonest symptoms. And then the other sort of difficult thing in the perimenopause is women's periods sometimes become heavy and erratic. Yeah. And that's a sort of, they can be sort of tackled together. And some treatments we would prescribe for heavy periods, like the Mirena coil, are also really useful in the menopause. So yeah, they sort of go hand in hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because there's quite a lot of a range of symptoms there, and as you said, it's quite important that you go there, you tell the doctor how you're feeling, what's going on, because it could be something else like a thyroid function. Yeah, so it's massive range of symptoms. So lots of ladies have been asking what is available, and I know you've had more training recently about different things that are available. What can a woman do then? So a woman's in full-blown menopause, not handling their symptoms at all very well. What kind of things would be on offer?
So basically, look after yourself. So try and maintain a healthy weight, exercise, don't drink too much alcohol, don't smoke, as a basic starting point. If a patient wants to avoid HRT and would rather go down the health food route, there's a very good article on patient.info. If you put alternatives to HRT into their search engine, it gives you the list of all the herbal options and the evidence base behind them. So if you want to try something more holistic before going along the lines of being prescribed HRT, then that's the place to start, really. And then it's HRT. So any woman with a uterus, anyone who hasn't had a hysterectomy, has to have estrogen and progesterone. You can have it in various forms, but the topical estrogens are thought to be safer in terms of having a lower deep vein thrombosis risk.
So what is a topical estrogen? What is that?
So you basically, it's an estrogen that you apply to the skin, either in gel form or with a patch, or there's a spray. Yeah, and then that has to be combined with progestogen. So you could use your patch or your gel or your spray, and then either take an oral progestogen, and Uterogestan is the one that we favor at the moment because it's more kind of bioidentical. And I think the thought is that the risk of breast cancer is lower with that compared to some of the synthetic progestogens. So you can have a patch or gel with an oral Uterogestan, or you can have a patch or gel with a Mirena coil, or you can have a combined estrogen and progestogen patch, or you can have an estrogen and progestogen tablet. But we sort of tend to prescribe those less. Yeah, there's, I mean, the other sort of treatments then, if somebody's not wanting sort of whole body HRT, systemic HRT, they can just use vaginal estrogens. So that really just helps with the symptoms of vaginal dryness. In someone who's wanting to avoid kind of having it as a systemic treatment, I suppose.
Is this the one you were talking about the other day?
There's a new vaginal treatment that contains estrogen and testosterone on the market, but it's very new. I don't know a great deal about it. Testosterone isn't licensed for treating menopausal symptoms in the UK, but it is prescribed mainly for low libido in gel form. lots of women will find that it tends to improve energy levels, as well as helping with libido. The risks are with it, you can become masculine, I suppose, if you're using too much of it, meaning, hair growth, particularly at the site of where you're applying the gel. Acne, I think, is another side effect of the gel, but I haven't prescribed it for many patients, but the patients who I have prescribed it for found it very helpful,
Well,
and
that's good.
had side effects. Yeah,
well, that's really good. As you know, we've got some questions. I invited people to send me messages and ask questions regarding things they were having problems with. I had one lady, she said, I'm suffering really bad with my symptoms. I'm definitely in the middle of menopause. I have breast cancer in my family. She didn't say whether it was through the BRCA gene. Can I take HRT?
HRT does slightly increase the risk of breast cancer. A family history of breast cancer isn't a contraindication to having HRT, and the topical forms are considered to be safer. So there's a new patch coming out that's estrogen and utrogestan, which is the bioidentical progestogen. That might be the better choice for someone with a family history of breast cancer, or estrogen in gel or patch form with the oral utrogestan. If she'd actually had breast cancer, then I mean, as a GP, I wouldn't be prescribing HRT, but some specialists may still be happy to offer that. But if as a GP, I would probably refer to a menopause specialist for some advice in that sort of scenario. But just a family history isn't a contraindication.
So just to clarify as well, so for people who might not have known about this, so HRT, it can be difficult for people to take if they've had breast cancer or ovarian cancer in the family. Can you explain a bit why that is the case?
HRT is thought to slightly increase the risk of ovarian cancer as well. As far as I'm aware, the risk, if you say you've had a hysterectomy and you're on estrogen only HRT, that doesn't increase the risk of breast cancer. So it's the progestogen in HRT that increases the risk of breast cancer, and therefore going for the kind of bioidentical progestogen is probably safer. I mean, I don't know if I know really why that the risk is increased, but I think it would make sense, for a woman who isn't having HRT, then their hormones, their estrogen progesterone levels would fall at the age of 50, 51. So in someone who goes on HRT, I suppose their body is being exposed to those hormones for longer, and maybe that's why. I think that's why the risk is there. Okay, lovely. Thank you so much.
So you mentioned about the HRT alternatives. You said about nutrition being one of them. And was it patient.info to go to?
Yes, patient. Yes, the GP Sarah Jarvis, I think, has a hand in managing that website. It's really good for lots of conditions. As I say, alternatives to HRT, the article is really good. And there's a really nice article on insomnia there as well, because that's another sort of menopausal symptom. So yeah, if you can have a look at that as a kind of a useful resource. The other useful websites are Menopause Matters and the British Menopause Society. And lots of useful info. I mean, as a GP, I use those for reference as well. So they're really useful, good websites.
I'll put these in the post, in the links as well, so people can access those. Now, we had a general chat about this the other day. I've been trying to get a gentleman to come on to talk about his experience as a partner with somebody that's going through the menopause. I think it's really important, even though it's about women, that we shouldn't ignore the effects that somebody in a partnership having menopause and going through a difficult time can have on a relationship. So we had a brief chat about it the other day. What advice would you give to a male partner of somebody going through the menopause?
Well, I'm sort of speaking from personal experience. I think as a woman, you tend to juggle so many different things around midlife. So you've got your career, your children, your house, elderly relatives, potentially pets, and we tend to be the kind of ones that hold everything in our heads all the time. I mean, I've always constantly myself got a constant list of what do I need to buy with the food shopping? What ironing do I need to do ready for tomorrow? These things in our heads all the time. And I think the only thing that I think would help me is if my other half shared the burden a little bit more. He's very good. So if I ask him to do something, will you hoover or whatever, then he will. But it'd be nice not to have to ask. If he could just think for himself.
Isn't it? But there is, you're right, there's so much going on, and menopause then is another whole set, and of course the symptoms change, don't they don't always stay the same necessarily, and as we were talking about the other day, it's having that communication and saying, well, how can I help, how what do you need me to do, how can I help you? Is the thing. And I think you're totally right. It's just you're getting to a certain age in life and your kids are grown up, so maybe you are working more, you have gone back to full-time work, or you've got a lot more pressures, or your kids going to uni, could be, or you'd be paying for things. I know what it's like at the moment to pay for driving lessons for a 17-year-old. It's expensive, so you're always busy and out doing things, trying to earn money, etc. So yes, we totally agree. Have you got any tips, finally, have you got any tips for ladies that are going to the menopause? Any advice?
In what sense? I mean,
just generally. So is it possibly to go and get the help? Is it to look after yourself more? Is it to go and research something? Or
I think if you're struggling, then speak to someone, whether that be a GP, a practice nurse, a friend, a colleague, husband. Just a lot of women worry that they're a burden, or will be thought of as neurotic. I think personally myself, as I've suffered from endometriosis for a very long time and kept that quiet because I was sort of almost embarrassed to say, because there's so much stigma surrounding these things. But I think thanks to sort of Davina McCall, we're much more able to talk about how we're feeling now, and it's not stigmatized, and it's okay to admit if you're struggling. Just don't be afraid to speak up, really.
That's fab. Totally agree. And this is what this is all about. It's trying to encourage women to talk about it, seek advice, and get together with other women. This is what we're going to be doing in this Mindful Menopause Week, opening up the chat. So thank you so much, Vicky, for coming on. Really appreciate it. I owe you one.
I hope it's been useful.
They have been useful. Thank you, love.
Okay, all right.
So yes, we hopefully have you back on again another time. Talk about something else.
Don't ask me about prostates.
I'll ask Roland about that.
Yeah. Leave me out of that.
Oh dear. Bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And speak to you soon.